Well, hello again, another day down, and I think it should be 15 days to go now. And I'm going to talk about everybody's favourite, or in fact it should be no one's favourite, which is burpees. The burpee board jumps, the one that certainly with the group of us in the big training sessions, whenever burpee comes up in the plan, there's a kind of a rolling of the eyes and kind of a sighing and a general hatred. And I've seen more bits of clothing which show a general dislike for burpees over the last few months than I knew existed. So yeah, they're a kind of a little bit kind of demonized, and I think because they're a hard movement. Effectively, certainly with the chest to floor burpees that we're doing, it's kind of like a push-up. You got to get down, you got to get back up, and then you've got to propel yourself forward. Where they tightened up the rules recently in terms of the drop. So when you're coming out, you've done the jump and you're coming back down to burpee, not leaning, diving forward and gaining 4 or 5 feet. That seems to have worried some people because they naturally kind of fall forward. And I think there's a few different techniques that I've personally found, again, far more amazing people around that can do this. Have a look at the Burpee coach. He's literally just down the road from me. We'll hook up with him at some point. And but yeah, he goes into burpees and all kinds of different drills you can do. And again, as with all of these things, practicing burpees is a good way of getting good at burpees, but actually practicing the compound movements and all the bits in between can get you better than burpees. Another one, a guy called Travis Owls, who set the world record for the burpee mile recently, so he's just a machine. But yeah, so on to burpees in the Hyrox. So for me, and this is some of the things that I've kind of absorbed a lot of this stuff, seen a lot of things, tried various different things. I actually now find it harder to do ordinary burpees than I do burpee board jumps. Because I've kind of learnt to use the movement. Now, one of the jokes, and I've made this joke earlier, is because all the people I train with tend to be quite a bit more taller than me, it's become a bit of a standing joke that I like the lunges and the burpees and some of these other ones because I'm short. So it's a hobbit event, and I'll take that. I'm closer to the ground. That's their idea. As I say to them, when I'm at the bottom of the squat holding the wall ball, it means that target seems like miles away. But the mechanics that I've kind of used, one of them, and you would have seen it in some of the videos, you've watched some of the videos of me doing burpees, and I'll try and get some more specifically from the sim this weekend. But I find it really, really difficult to explain a burpee. I have to do it. Don't worry, I'm not going to try and do it from this angle here. But for me, it's about the momentum. Firstly, one of the very early things I picked up is don't stand up. As in, don't stand up tall all the way, because it's just a waste of energy coming up and then coming back down again. So I stay low for the whole thing, and I've settled on kind of 2 techniques that I can use. One is much quicker, but much more tiring, and that's basically using the momentum to its fullest. And it's interesting when a lot of us started talking about the changing rules, and we were all kind of practicing, and I was showing a few of them kind of my technique, because they know I'm quite fast at burpees. Is I had to get down and kind of show them. But for me, the issue about my hands being on the ground, being too far away from my feet, which is where they tightened up the rules, is a non-issue for 2 reasons. Firstly, because I use my momentum, and I also jump with my legs quite wide open. So putting my hands down between my feet is very, very easy, and it means I can go almost kind of straight down. So there's no need, there isn't that natural kind of falling forward. If you notice, if you stand with your legs together and go down to the floor, you tend to go out further. If you stand with your legs apart, you can tend to go down much kind of closer. So that's one of the things, but it's actually more to do with the fact, the momentum. So when I land on the jump, I basically use that momentum. I don't try and stop myself and then go down. I use that forward momentum and throw myself down. And so there is actually a point, and I will try and see it, because I've never actually seen this, and I would like to see if they get a photo or a video of this, but someone would have to be there at the right time. I think there is a point where I'm throwing my hands down as I'm falling, because literally I catch myself, I start kicking my legs out. So there is a moment when neither my feet or my hands are on the floor, and I'm literally just falling towards the ground. Then my hands come down and my feet are extended out behind me, and my toes come down, I'm in the press up position, and I'm back up again. And that is, for me, lightning quick in terms of doing that and keeping that momentum going. I don't need to worry about the rules, because that momentum is carrying me straight back down. My hands are coming where my feet were, or sometimes behind where my feet were, because I'm coming down and just using that momentum. And again, whether any of that makes sense, me even describing it to you, because it's quick, and B, I'm not sure in my own mind whether that kind of makes sense. But if you can just imagine that it's throwing yourself down to catch yourself, and I am catching myself. But remember, because I'm not doing it from a standing position, I'm doing it from the crouch that I've just come up. I'm only doing it with my hands kind of like 4 feet off the ground. So it's not like I'm standing up and the ground is 5'8" below me, or even less than that. So yeah, it's about kind of catching myself. So that is my fastest, but it's by far the most tiresome one. Now, if I know my partner is in good shape, then I will tend to come straight off the run, which is my ideal, and go straight into it. And so be the first one on that station, which means I will typically get the rest at the end, because I do need to catch my breath after doing them. If I'm not going in first and I know I'm going to go into the run, I have my kind of backup one, which has a lot of similarities. It just doesn't have that real kind of explosive fall to the ground where I catch myself and my legs flick out. It is slower, but it's slightly less energy zapping. But again, it's still about keeping low, and it's really about keeping low to the ground. And when I come back up, my hands go down, and literally they're going down, and they're barely coming up. And that's one of the key things. So I'm going all the way down to chest. I'm pushing up, but I'm in then a crouch position with my hands still down near the ground. I'm jumping from that position. So I'm jumping, and then when I land, my hands are already near the floor, and I just then put them to the floor, kick my legs out, or step my legs out. If I'm particularly tired, go back down and repeat. So it's slower, but it's I can maintain that for longer without kind of really kind of pushing myself. So again, it depends how we're doing in the race, how my partner's doing, and how we're kind of feeling. But again, having those two techniques, both are still quite fast, but one is probably almost twice as fast as the other one, and that's the one I will be trying to maintain on the day. The race I did last year called Cyclone, which is a local kind of version of Hyrox, was actually really weird because it was outside and it had burpee board jumps in it on grass. And it was really weird just doing that technique, seeing my hands disappear into the grass and then literally getting a face full of grass between each burpee. So that was weird. But yeah, so that for me is they're my two ways of kind of doing it. The real energy bounce, and I've been called all kinds of things like a frog and various things when I'm doing this, because I'm quick and I'm keeping low. So that's my preferred technique. But again, find what works for you. But again, if you're doing lots of push-ups, if you're doing explosive bits, if you've been training your legs, training compromised from the runs and the stations and doing some HIIT sessions, then your fitness and your cardiovascular is going to do that. Your strength is there in the arms, and it's just then putting those movements together. Again, it's one of the ones that's very, very easy to practice, and very easy to practice compromised. And it's a good exercise to use to get you compromised to then go into the next run and things like that. So I quite enjoy it, and I think there's some bizarre enjoyment over the fact that I'm okay at them. It's one of the ones I don't mind saying I'm okay at them, and so there's a bit of enjoyment I get because people come and ask me about them, so it's like, okay, I'm not too bad at them, cool. So yes, it's one I do, I might sound odd for admitting I do quite enjoy the burpees. I quite look forward to them. Get me to them for a long amount of time, I will move into that second technique and won't be quite as explosive. But yeah, it's kind of setting into that rhythm and knowing that I can go all out, straight off the run, straight into those, and I can hopefully put a good burpee time in for myself and my partners on the two different events. So yeah, burpees, I think, have a bit of a bad rap, but I think if you get the technique down and find out what technique works for you, some people do an incredibly massive jump, and most of the people I train with do a much bigger jump than me. And because the bit they don't enjoy is the getting all the way down and getting back up. And this is why it's finding out back to kind of biomechanics again, is that if you find the jump really easy, then do the biggest jump you can, because then you're going to do less actual burpees and more jump. Fantastic. You know, for me, my jump isn't particularly short, but I can go down. I can basically do 2 burpees and cover more distance in the same time that they're doing one slower one, and that's how I can kind of cover the distance quite fast. So again, I'm not doing big strides. It's lots of smaller jumps, but they're very kind of quick and just using that momentum and motion. So find out what works for you, what you enjoy, which might be the wrong term, and just make that kind of work for you and your partner when you're doing your actual run. So yeah, that's burpees. Again, I kind of enjoy them. They're not as bad as you think, but just get some of those techniques, watch those rule changes, don't get caught out by that one, because then they will feel painful. And just practice. When I started doing the very much throwing myself to the ground, my biggest concern, and I started this a while ago, was, you know, doing something to my wrists. But of course, as I've got leaner, fitter, and using that momentum, you know, catching what is at that point only half my body weight is not too bad, because I'm training with heavy weights and things like that. So don't injure yourself. If you're worried about it, just kind of build up to it, but find what works for you. So I hope that's been helpful, and I'll catch you on the next one. Bye for now.